Okay, hello and welcome to our video series following along with DC4. That is Advanced SolidWorks, and for our first project in the class we're doing this computer mouse. I went ahead and got us actual computer mice from the electronics recycler, so I'm going to be using the mouse itself as the main guide for the build here. And then I've also taken some photos of the side view and the top view to kind of guide my build here in SolidWorks. So this very first thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be building this side surface here. And so we're going to need to build some 3D curves. And then we're going to be using the Boundary Surface tool based off those 3D curves. And so in this very first video, I'm going to be building the necessary 3D curves to create the boundary surface. Just kind of walk you through the process. First thing you notice when you look at this is you see that I've got these images imported into SolidWorks. And I want to show you over here in my design view, I've named each of these in the design tree so that they're easier to find, because I'm going to be toggling them on and off throughout the entire process. So you can see here in capitals, I've named them here. And you can also see that I've got this button here, this little arrow at the top of my design tree, which displays these toggle buttons for the visibility of the images, so I can turn them on and off one by one. I can turn off all the different parts of the model right here with these buttons. And so this just makes it easy for me to show what I need to show depending on what step I'm at. Okay, so first thing we see here is I've got the side view. That's this image here. Since it's a sketch picture that's been inserted to a sketch, I have to unfold the sketch in order to get to the picture. If I double click on that picture, it brings up the property manager for the picture, and here underneath transparency, I can apply transparency to the full image, and then I can set that to anything I want, like 75% transparency, and then approve that. And all that does is just make it a little easier for me to understand as I draw over this image. Okay. Another thing to point out as far as this build goes is I have not only my side view, but I also have the top view. That's here. And then I also have this thing called the footer view, which is just the bottom side of the mouse. It shows the foot. I'm calling it the foot. It's where the mouse sits on the actual table. And you can see that there's a surface down here at the bottom that needs to get traced, as well as the outer edge of the top view. Okay. So with all of that on, you can see that I've got some of the line work already pre-drawn just for this tutorial, just to save us some time. So I'll hide the side view here, and I'll also hide the top view. And we'll take a look at how I started out here. So I've got these curves here, and you can see this curve here, sketch number 3, follows along with this edge of the footer. Okay. Then I've got this sketch here, which follows along with the top, or sorry, it follows along with the midpoint of the mouse right here. All right, the other sketches that I have set up have to do with the top view. Let me just kind of rotate into position here. I've got another curve that's right here that follows along with the outer edge of the mouse. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to project this curve up and project this curve out to make a 3D curve that we can then use to build down to the footer surface. Okay, so I'm going to do that now. The tool that I'm going to use is called Project Curve. It's under the Features tab, over to Curves, down to Project Curve. Pretty easy the way it works. You pick one curve on the top view and pick one curve on the side view. It projects them out and creates this nice 3D curve. Common problem with creating 3D curves like this is that you'll get gaps here at the ends. And all that means is that the end point of this side view and the end point of the top view are not lined up. So if you find yourself with a gap here or over here, go back to the two curves that are driving this 3D curve and adjust them until these points line up. Once you finish the 3D curve, it's going to show up in your design tree like this, curve number 2. And you can see that there's a little gray box next to it. You can open that and you can display the two curves that are driving this 3D curve. So if there's any problems with your 3D curve, you can go here and you can edit these curves one by one and just double confirm that, in fact, these edges are lined up. Okay? So there we go. Now, if you try to make the 3D curve and you can't see it, it may be that you've got the curves turned off. Up here in the heads-up display, you've got this eyeball button, hide and show items. And right here is a button that says View Curves. If I click that button, I can toggle the visibility on and off of all my 3D curves at once. Okay? Now later in the build, we're going to have to turn off our 3D curves and turn them back on again in order to flow well, I guess. I don't know. So it's important to point this button out. Okay? We'll talk about that later, but for now, just remember, heads-up display down to View Curves. And that's that. Okay? So we're good with that. One of the things I'm noticing right away is that I'm having some navigation issues with these large images kind of imported into SolidWorks, so I want to just hide those. So I'm going to hide the top view, and we're just going to stick to the line work that we need in order to do this build. Okay? Okay, so what I'm going to do here is try to create a four-sided surface. We talked about boundary surface in class. Boundary surface is fantastic at patching a four-sided hole. And so I have to kind of build edges that connect this 3D curve down to this footer sketch to create a four-sided opening that I can then patch. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to go to the right plane. I'm going to start a sketch. I'm going to use my flyout menu to grab the spline. I'm going to just loosely throw down a sketch, and then I'm going to pierce it to the bottom sketch. Remember, if you don't remember pierce, you grab the point, you hold down Control, you click the body of a curve, let go, and pierce command will pop up, and you can pierce. So after doing that, I'm just going to quickly just adjust this curve to something I kind of like. There we go. And there's one edge from there. Okay, I'm going to do that again with a new sketch on the other side. So I'm going to go to the right view, create a sketch, grab my spline tool, loosely lay down a sketch just with 2 points, and then pierce it to the 3D sketch, and then pierce it down to the bottom sketch, and then adjust. Okay. Very good. All right, I'm happy with that. So now I have a four-sided hole here that I can use boundary surface to fill up. Right? This would be one edge, two edge, three edge, four edge, four-sided hole. Okay? But I kind of want to have some guide curves connecting my 3D sketch down to the footer. And so in order to get guide curves to be where I want, I need to be able to add custom planes to the layout here. And so I'm going to do that now. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use the points that are on these other curves to set up the planes. So I'm going to go Reference Geometry Plane. I'm going to click on the body of a curve and then the point, and that's going to put a plane right there in the middle of my build. And I can use that to create a new sketch, grab my spline tool, and connect my 3D curve down to my footer. So as usual, I just draw it out in space without touching any of the rest of the line work I've drawn. And then I'll pierce, and I'll pierce down here, pierce. And then after that, I'll adjust. Same scenario as before. Now I've done this enough times that I kind of have this line sort of memorized, but on a typical day in the studio, I would just be referring back to the actual mouse, just looking at it, analyzing the surface, and trying to memorize what this line should look like. And so I'm going to be happy with that and just say okay. And then I'll hide this plane just to get it out of my way. Now I know that there's a lot of curvature here in the front edge, so I probably want to have another plane in this area. So I'm going to grab my plane and I'm going to click the body of the sketch and then the point, and that's going to put a plane right where I need it. In fact, fact, you know what? I don't actually like that. I think I want the plane to be a little bit over this way. So I'll just delete the references for that new plane. Delete. And I'll just re-enter them here. I'll click on this line and this point. And you can see how that works. You click on a curve, click on a point, and it puts the plane right where you want it. We'll approve that. I'm going to right click, open up a new curve. Sorry, a new spline. Just like that. I'm going to just loosely kind of lay down a line and then pierce it. And pierce. If you don't get the pierce command to pop up, it means you just had a little misclick. Just accidentally didn't hit the line, so let's just do that again. Come on now. Computer's freezing up a little bit. There she is. Make pierce. Okay. It's giving me static. All right, now that that's done, let me just get in here and let me just adjust that curve, the vertical relation. At any point, I can just look normal to that sketch to see it, kind of how it looks. And again, I'm referring back to the actual mouse to kind of define what that curve should look like. Okay. So now I'm going to hide this plane just to get it out of my way. All right. I've also got this sketch and this sketch, which are still shown. These are the two sketches that are driving this 3D sketch. Those are just there to kind of illustrate what it is that's creating this 3D sketch. So for now, I can just hide those. I don't need them anymore. So I'll just go hide. And you can see what I did. I just right clicked on the sketch in the design area here and that hid it. I can also go over here to my visibility panel, click on the curve that I want to hide. I can also just roll over it in my design tree until I find it. It'll highlight in orange, I hope. Here it is right here. Nested inside of my 3D curve. And then I can hit this button to just hide it. Okay, so I'm just keeping it simple for myself because this is complicated work and I want to keep my design area free of any clutter. So now I'm good. I've got a 4-sided hole I need to patch. 1 side, 2 side, 3 side, 4 side. And I've got a series of guide curves to help the surface along. So it's time to bust out my boundary surface tool. And I'm going to go direction 1 is going to be from left to right. And direction 2 will be from top to bottom. So direction 1, left to right. Come on. Now, if this happens, you get something scary that looks like this. You've got something called flipped connectors. This pink and green dot, these are the connectors, the direction connectors for your boundary surface, and they can flip. If that happens, it's not the end of the world. Don't freak out. Just go over here to your boundary surface property manager. Go to the latest sketch you've added, right click on it, and go flip connectors. All right. I've got the mesh turned on my property, in the property manager on my boundary surface with a mesh density set to 14. That's under curvature display. All right. It's slowing up my computer a little bit, so I'm just going to drop that down to like, I don't know, 3. And then I'm going to continue to add direction 1 curves in here. So there's another one, and here's another one. Okay. I got another flip connector. I'm just going to stay calm. Flip it the way I want it. There you go. Okay, now direction 2. I'm going to grab the 3D curve and I'm going to grab the footer curve. I got a little bit of a problem here. Looks like it's giving me some static. I've got an error. So let me just go back and try to figure that out. I'll just right click on that and I'll just delete this. I'm actually going to clear out the 3D sketch as a direction 2 curve. I'm just going to add that one in first, the bottom one in first. And then I'll add the 3D curve in next. I've got another little problem here. Looks to me that the bottom footer curve is a closed loop, so I've got to just edit that. So let's go to my footer curve. This is the one giving me trouble. I'm going to edit it. I'm going to just right click on this one, change it to a construction curve so that I've got a single open span here. And now I should be able to run my boundary surface tool without a problem. So this time, considering I'm having a little bit of a problem here, I'm going to right click on the 3D sketch first, and then I'm going to go down to the footer curve, the problem curve, another flipped connector. Just flip it back. That's working correctly now. Now I'll use the guide curves as direction 2. Okay. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. It's a 4-step process. Come on. There we go. Good. Come on now. You just hit it. There she is. Okay. Okay, now when you do a boundary surface, you get these little flags that pop up. These are the things that will talk about the surface continuity. How does this surface end? If you right-click on these, you can go down to normal to profile. And what that means, when I set this to normal to profile, you can see the surface kind of flicker. And what that's doing is it's telling this surface that when it hits this curve, it needs to be normal to the profile, right? Remember, this curve was drawn on the right plane. So that means somewhere microscopically on this surface, when it hits that right plane, it's going to be normal to the right plane, perfectly perpendicular, so that when I mirror this later, it'll flip over nicely, okay? There is one extra level of continuity that you can get when you're dealing with the edge of a boundary surface, and that's called curvature. But in order to get to that curvature setting, you need to attach your boundary surface to an actual 3D surface instead of just a curve. Okay? So let me show you that. I'm just going to exit out of here. I'm going to use extruded surface, and I'm going to extrude some surfaces off of these edge curves. All right? So I'll approve that. There's one. Extrude surface. Flip it. Approve it. And you can see now that I've got extruded surfaces off of those edge curves, the edge curve gets absorbed into the feature, and now I have actual 3D geometry on my edges instead of just a planar curve, 2D curve. So you have to think about mathematics here. There's more mathematics behind a 3D surface than there is behind a 2D curve. So you're just giving your boundary surface more information to work off of, and it's going to allow you to create better edge condition on your boundary surface because there's more information for it to latch onto. While I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and add a guide curve in over on this edge because I see that I have an open point and I know that I've got the opportunity to do that. So I'm going to go reference geometry, plane, hit the curve, and then hit the point. There you go. That's going to give me a plane perfectly at that angle, and I can use this plane to add another guide curve in. So I'm just going to create a sketch, grab my spline, and go like that. There we go. And I'm going to pierce it down to the bottom. I'm going to pierce it down to here. I'm going to look at that curve, turn it on for a second, and just kind of adjust. There we go. I'm putting a vertical relation on the edge, the very end of each of my guide curves. I've done that to every single one. I think it's going to help. Now I'll just hide that curve. And now I'm really set up in a good scenario. This is exactly where you want to be, right? You want to have 3D surfaces at the edges of your boundary surface. So I'm good to go now. Boundary surface. Let's try it again this way. Direction 1, we'll go there. Notice right away with the boundary surface, because I've got a 3D surface that I'm attaching onto, instead of saying curve 1 or spline 1 or whatever, it now says edge 1. That means surface edge. Okay, so an edge has more value than a curve. So I'm going to go there. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go here. I'm going to grab this one now. All right. And there we go. Now, for direction 2, I'm going to go top to bottom. Grab the 3D curve to start. All right. And then I'll grab the footer curve to close it. Okay. So right away, this is looking like a really clean surface. All right. Last thing to do is just set up your edge constraints over here. Now, when I go to the edge constraints, we'll do this one because it follows along with the way we're working here. Remember before when we had just a curve on the end, it only gave us the option to do normal to profile. Now that we have this boundary surface attached to the edge of a 3D surface, we now have much more options. We have tangency to face and curvature to face. This curvature to face, this is your goal. You want this one. It's the very best edge condition you can choose. So we'll choose that. You may get a warning that says it doesn't match. Just ignore that and set it up. You can see the surface flash there. That little stutter in the surface means that the computer has arranged the very edge of this surface to be curvature continuous to this 3D surface. And I'm going to do it again over here. Notice how this flag relates to this edge. curvature to face. Little flash, so you know it worked. Okay, and we're good to go. So I'm going to approve this. There's our 3D surface, built off 3D sketches. Now we've still got this reference geometry shown. That's this guy and this guy. Okay. Since those have finished doing their job, we can just hide them. Right click and hide. Hide. And there you go. All right. Now in class, I went ahead and put a planar surface down here on this footer. You could do that now if you want. The planar surface tool is here. What it does is it just fills in any flat sketch that you have with a surface. We don't need to do that until later. It's optional. But this should get you started. Now I can go ahead and I can turn on my side view. Hit my space bar to open up my navigation window. And you can take a look at the surface that we've actually built. Okay, so this surface here. Okay, so we're good to go. In our next video, we're going to go ahead and create another 3D curve that's going to fall along with the top edge of this material break. All right, and then we're going to make another curve that's going to fall along with the top of our mouse. We're going to do another boundary surface or maybe a filled surface to get the very top of this mouse surface set up, and then we'll connect the two using more boundary surfaces. All right, so practice this first boundary surface here using all the techniques in this video. And once you have them mastered, you'll be able to proceed to the next step where we're just going to continue to use all the same operations to build the rest of this model. Okay, so that's that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.